For over 200 years, Earth was ravaged by a holy war between the goddess Athena and the Underworld King Hades. After the conflict, peace returned, but both sides secretly awaited the day their masters would rise again and reignite the ancient battle. On a beautiful sunny day, Alone strolls through the streets, soaking in the serene atmosphere when his eyes catch a disturbing sight: two boys hurling rocks at a defenseless puppy. Alone is a kind-hearted soul who isn't able to bear to see the poor puppy's suffering, so he shields the puppy with his own body. This act leaves him vulnerable to their assault, and one rock strikes his head, causing blood to trickle down his forehead. The duo is surprised by this, but their surprise turns into hostility as they grab the puppy from him with the excuse that it stole their lunch from them. Alone reminds them that it's just a poor puppy who knows nothing about human morality. But the duo is heartless and says that they are poor, and it is hard for them to earn money to buy lunch. Since this puppy stole their lunch, they must make it suffer. Alone realizes that they just want money, so he offers them a vial of an expensive pigment that can be sold in the market for a hefty sum. The duo accepts the vial and throws the puppy back to him, and is about to leave when suddenly a young, youthful guy appears from behind and delivers a few blows to the arrogant duo. The youth is naturally Tenma, the best friend of our protagonist. However, Alone berates Tenma for using force, but he reminds him that sometimes violence is the answer to these things as he beats them up and hands the vial back to Alone. The duo runs away, promising to take their revenge, but Tenma isn't afraid as he has grown up in an orphanage, so trouble isn't anything new for him. On the other hand, his best friend Alone also happens to be from the same orphanage, but his temperament is rather kind and sweet. They both are like yin and yang, presenting perfect balance, which might be the reason why they continued to remain best friends, despite being so different from each other. Later, Alone paints a portrait of a saint in the church when Father introduces a visitor, a priest from the cathedral nestled deep within the forest. Alone is surprised to see him here as the priest appreciates the beauty of his portrait. The priest tells Alone that he heard that he visits their cathedral frequently, to which he nods as he wants to see the portrait of the saint in the cathedral that's so beautiful that even criminals start to cry. But unfortunately, the cathedral is not open to the public, so he always has to return in disappointment. The priest comments that the portrait is indeed very beautiful, with a weird smile on his face as a star shines on his forehead. He carries on the conversation and asks Alone why he hasn't yet drawn the eyes, to which Alone replies that he just didn't find any good shade of scarlet, which will suit the eyes. However, the priest remarks that all the colors are fake, as it's just the light shining on them that makes them look different. Only the true colors are truly beautiful, as they are free from any sort of restriction. Saying this, he informs Alone that there is a true color, the color of the red that stems from the blood of a two-winged angel that exists only in the forest atop the mountain, which will suit his portrait of the saint. So that's why Alone heads up to that mountain with his new puppy friend, as they overcome the difficulties of walking up a steep path. After getting a few bruises here and there, he finally reaches the top, where a beautiful forest reveals itself to him. The forest is straight out of mythology, as it has a beautiful stream running across it with lush green trees all over the place. In the middle, there exists a beautiful Roman-style structure that catches his attention, prompting him to visit it. The beautiful structure feels ethereal, so Alone decides to paint a portrait of the puppy to spend some quality time here. While he is drawing the portrait, a bunch of animals come to surround him, as they are attracted by his beautiful, pure soul. This whole scene itself creates a stunning picture, but sadly, no one is there to appreciate it. Just then, Alone feels that something is off, and soon enough all the animals around him start to cry and make a run for their lives. Even his trusted puppy starts to shiver in fear as it growls towards the unknown. From the strong blowing winds appears a woman of marvelous beauty. She is so beautiful that any person would fall for her instantly, but Alone feels something devilish about her. He wants to run, but his body doesn't allow it as the woman keeps on coming close to him. The puppy in front of Alone dies due to her presence, which causes Alone to cry as he asks her why she did it, but the woman doesn't respond and tells him that he has a very beautiful and pure soul, so pure that he lacks any color. So that's why he must paint himself with the most beautiful of the colors, which is black. Alone retorts that he doesn't want a true color and that he likes the shade of red that is present in nature. The light that causes the change in those colors is marvelous to see, but the woman tells him that when every color of the light is mixed together, they come together to form the color black. Saying this, the woman comes closer to Alone's face and puts her lips onto his. As their lips touch, Alone starts to bleed from his mouth as blood drops onto his hands. Just then, the woman backs away as she takes out a crown made from flowers and presents it to Alone, as she welcomes the appearance of their long-awaited king. Alone, whose lips are still bleeding, suddenly feels a strong force on his chest as the pendant on his neck starts to glow brightly and turns into a star. At that moment, the whole forest starts to shake as thunder rages across the sky. The beautiful woman kneels in front of Alone and welcomes the arrival of their king of the underworld, Hades. Later, a man is passing through a forest when he feels some evil presence, so he looks ahead and finds a few specters of the underworld who have already infiltrated the earth. The specters also sense him and immediately engage in a battle, but their enemy is Saint Libra, Duco. Duco beats their asses up in a few seconds, but their appearance makes him afraid that Hades might have been revived. Later, Tenma discovers Alone collapsed near the mountain and brings him home. He mentions feeling a mysterious energy within Alone once again, prompting Alone to wonder if he harbors something extraordinary inside him. At that moment, the star pendant falls to the ground, catching Tenma's attention. He reaches down to pick it up, but Alone suddenly yells for him not to touch it. Tenma is astonished as Alone has never yelled at him before. But before he can say anything, one of the orphans comes running into the room and informs Tenma that a huge flood is about to hit their location, but the town's guard closed the doors so they are on their own. This infuriates Tenma, who prepares to confront the guards and demand answers. However, Alone intervenes, advising him that such actions could lead to trouble for Tam. Tenma is extremely angry but calms down after looking at the faces of all the children. He tells Alone that he will try to do something about the flood. In the meantime, he requests him to go and have the guards let the children inside. Alone is afraid that something might happen to Tenma, but he assures him that everything will be fine and that he promised Sasha that he will protect him. After a few more emotional sentences, Tenma heads outside towards the blockage that's causing the floodwater to change its route. Tenma arrives at the blockage but feels depressed after looking at the sheer size of it. But remembering the hopeful faces of the children, he tightens his fists and slams it into the blockage. His fist manages to create a small gap, but the hardness of the stone almost causes his bones to break. But Tenma doesn't give up, and instead keeps on punching till his hands are bleeding, and his bones almost shattered. But his spirit has never been this high before, as he remembers all of the children at the orphanage, and his best friend Alone. He delivers one last final punch, which explodes the whole blockage, causing all the water to slam on him like a sledgehammer. Fortunately, Duco happens to be passing by and notices his courage and strength and his innate cosmos that only saints have, so he decides to rescue him. He advises Tenma to use his strength to help more people, and if he wants to do that, he can come with him to become a saint of Athena. Later, Tenma is sitting in front of Alone, who paints a portrait of him, but gives up as he couldn't find any good color to paint his red eyes. So he promises Tenma that when he returns back after becoming a saint, he will continue this painting. Saying this, he starts to cry, so Tenma rubs his hair and tells him that he will return very soon. After wishing him a farewell, Tenma heads outside where Duco is waiting for him. Alone also comes out to wave his goodbyes, but Duco is surprised to see him. Alone is confused, so Duco tells him that he has very pure and clear eyes, and leaves with Tenma. Meanwhile, Alone asks himself in his heart if they will continue to be friends, as he himself isn't sure after that incident on the mountain. Meanwhile, in the cathedral of the forest, the priest and the black-haired woman talk about the revival of their king Hades, and how beautiful the earth would be under his command. In the sanctuary of Athena, the candidates for the saint position are training as they battle with each other. Among these candidates is Tenma, who has just completed his training when a rude guy named Yato insults him, calling him a chipmunk for no apparent reason. His two underlings also call out Tenma for being a coward who won't accept their challenge, but Tenma responds that they too aren't even worthy of his efforts. Although he has much heard about Yato on how he always acts like an annoying fly who wouldn't shut up. The insult causes Yato to flare up as he challenges Tenma to a duel. Tenma accepts it, as defeating Yato will only make his position stable as a saint's candidate. However, during the duel, Tenma struggles to tap into the power of his inner cosmos, leaving him significantly weaker than Yato, who possesses natural talent. But Tenma doesn't want to give up, so he keeps trying to unleash the same attack that caused the water blockage to break, but he miserably fails each time. Yato, on the other hand, is able to read every move of his with ease, which allows him to win without even trying hard. After losing the battle, Tenma is furious with himself and punches a boulder in frustration, but his weak cosmic energy fails to leave even a mark. This makes Duko laugh at him, as he tells him that if he can't even tap into his cosmos potential, then becoming a saint is nothing more than a joke. To showcase to him how the destructive power works, he releases a small bit of energy from his fingertip, which reduces the entire boulder into rubble. Tenma is amazed by it, and begs him to teach him. Duko knows his true potential, so he tells him that the destructive power works on a very simple principle. Everything in the universe is made up of atoms, and by splitting those atoms, he can destroy everything in the world with ease. However, splitting the atoms isn't very easy and requires extremely powerful energy, and that's where their inner cosmos comes in handy. He splits the atoms in his cosmos to unleash a destructive energy that can be used to destroy every matter. After teaching him the core principle, Duko leaves as Tenma tries to comprehend what he just taught. He remembers how he used the spiritual motivation given to him by his friends to destroy the blockage the other day, so why can't he just do the same? So he remembers Alone and punches in the air, but stops when he notices a hand that has the same flower bracelet that he and Alone have. He suspects that it's Alone, and runs towards it only to find that it's a girl. This shocks him, as the only other person who had the bracelet was Sasha. So that must mean that she is Sasha. At first, Sasha is confused as to why would a random person grab her arm, but when Tenma calls by her name, she becomes surprised and asks him how he knows her real name. Tenma is confused and asks her if she doesn't remember him or Alone, which makes Sasha finally remember as tears form in her eyes. She tells him how she could forget about them and becomes teary, and asks him how they have been doing ever since they were separated. Tenma has so much to tell her, but their sweet reunion is disturbed by a specter named Raimi from the Underworld, who is here to wreak havoc on the sanctuary. Tenma tries to stop him, but he gets destroyed by Raimi, who is much stronger than him. Raimi also has creepy worm-like legs that capture Tenma into a terrifying grip, threatening to suffocate him. While Tenma is struggling to break free, Raimi laughs after seeing Sasha, who seems like a delicate girl. And to him, the delicate girls are the best to bully, as their cries make him sleep well at night. Seeing that Sasha is in trouble allows Tenma to once again burst with the power of his cosmos, as he breaks free from the shackles and punches towards Raimi, who barely manages to dodge. But the destructive power caused by Tenma's punch makes him afraid, so he becomes even more cautious while dealing with him. Even though Tenma is now able to use a bit more of his strength, he is still far below Raimi, so he gets captured once again and thrashed on the ground like a slab of meat. Sasha isn't able to see this, so she orders Raimi to stop, who turns around and sees that Sasha is surrounded by a radiant light. He first suspects that it's the cosmos, but the cosmos isn't that great, so it must be something even grander. That's when it finally clicks, as he starts to laugh like a maniac. He thanks Sasha for revealing herself, as it will save time for him to look for her. But just when he is about to make a move on her, a dominant voice comes from behind him, as Raimi falls onto the ground from a single attack. The man behind that attack is Saint Ares, Shion. Shion apologizes to Sasha as he kneels in front of her, ready to accept his punishment. That's when Tenma realizes that Sasha is the Goddess Athena. The previous incident causes Tenma to grow up even faster, as soon he takes on the strongest contender for the saint's position, and obtains a perfect victory. The Pope rewards him with the cloth of the Saint Pegasus, as Tenma from now on is one of the saints. With his remarkable position, he is assigned the task of heading to Italy and dealing with the specters that have been roaming around for nefarious purposes. Tenma accepts the task and leaves while giving a thumbs up to Sasha. This makes Yato shocked, and he becomes even more jealous. In the meantime, Alone has been painting relentlessly since Tenma's departure, only to realize that everything he paints seems to meet a tragic end. This realization terrifies him, leading him to question whether he is cursed. Just then, the black-haired woman appears, reassuring him that his paintings are indeed beautiful because true salvation lies in death. So that's why she takes him to the cathedral in the forest, where Alone once again meets the priest, who seems even more devilish this time. The priest welcomes him Alone inside as he guides him to the painting of the saint that he always wanted to see. Alone rushes toward the painting, only to be horrified when he sees a figure on top of a pile of corpses that bears an uncanny resemblance to himself. This causes him to step back, but the priest stops him and tells him that he must see the end of it. Just then, Alone is taken into a room where he finds that all the children in the orphanage are dead. He runs towards them and tries to wake them up, but the black-haired woman tells him that they died because he painted their pictures full of love 3 days ago. If he truly loved them, then why did they die? They died because true salvation resides in death. Hearing this alone is taken into an illusion where he sees the souls of the children flying toward a man that looks like him, but with black wings. The man looks extremely kind and extends a hand towards him, which causes Alone to go to sleep as Hades wakes up inside his body. Sasha and Tenma, who were watching the moon, see that the moon disappears as darkness takes over. It's at this moment that Sasha realizes that Hades has woken up, which also signals that the holy war has begun. Following Hades' revival, the sanctuary dispatches several Silver Saints to investigate an area where numerous specters have recently been sighted. The Silver Saints run into a few of those specters and beat them up, but one of them manages to flee. Rather than capturing the fleeing specter, the group decides to follow him to uncover his destination. The specter leads them to the cathedral in the forest, but after arriving there, they find that the specter was killed by the black-haired woman who welcomes them into the abode of her master Hades. As a result of the battle, all the Silver Saints are killed except 3 who managed to survive. They arrive back at the sanctuary and inform Sasha about the battle and the cathedral where they met specters, and after a brutal battle, they manage to kill all of them. The Golden Saints are surprised that they managed to kill all the specters there, but just then the Silver Saints, kneeling on the ground, attack Sasha with the intent to kill her, but the Golden Saints intervene and protect her. They are confused as to why would the Silver Saints attack Sasha, but when they see the underworld aura surrounding them, they finally realize what must have happened. The Silver Saints start to laugh and inform them that they are now servants of their Lord Hades, as they were revived once again through his mighty powers. They attack the Golden Saints, Shion and Duco, and even manage to push them back. This is rather shocking to the spectators, so they both decide to get serious and attack the Silver Saints with full power. Sasha wants to stop them as she feels the true feelings of the Silver Saints, but it's too late as the attacks are already on the faces of the Silver Saints. After being knocked down, Sasha walks up to them and apologizes that she couldn't protect them as tears fall from her eyes. This causes the Silver Saints to also wake up, but it's too late as they turn to dust with regret in their eyes. This incident crosses a critical threshold for the sanctuary, prompting the Pope to order Duco and Shion to lead several Silver and Bronze Saints in investigating what remains. After accepting the orders, Shion and Duco chose various Silver and Bronze Saints, which included both Tenma and Yato. As Tenma and Yato are relatively new saints, the Golden Saints advise them to be safe and come back alive. After making the preparations, the group heads to their targeted location, where they find a huge burst of light shot into the sky, which causes Tenma to get worried as it's in the location of his town. So Tenma turns towards that direction and starts to run. The other saints follow him as they also arrive at the town, which has been burnt down to the last building remaining. Tenma is worried about Alone and the other children, so he heads to the orphanage only to end up finding that they are all dead. Tenma receives a massive mental shock and is struggling to stand on his feet when a specter named Phlegius breaks out of the wall and challenges Tenma to a fight. Tenma, who is extremely enraged by the death of the children, attacks Phlegius with all the rage in his heart, causing him to defeat him in one punch. His power alarms Alone, who senses that Tenma is here, so it's time for him to complete the portrait that he wanted to complete 2 years ago. Meanwhile, Tenma is angry at Hades for destroying his hometown and swears to beat him up, but just then, lightning flashes in the sky, and Yato is thrown on the ground and spits blood from his throat. Tenma immediately rushes to check up on him, but is stopped when his eyes fall onto Alone, who stares at him from above. Tenma's body starts to shake as he asks Alone if he is Hades, but in response, he only receives a smile from him answering his question. In a flashback, Tenma, Alone, and Sasha are sitting under a tree when Sasha gives them each a bracelet made of vines and flowers. They all wear bracelets symbolizing their eternal friendship. But now, Tenma finds that his best friend is the kind of the underworld who massacred so many people. This causes him to suffer greatly mentally, but Alone is unfazed and reminds him about the painting that he couldn't complete 2 years ago, so it's finally time for him to complete it as the color red is right beneath his feet. Tenma looks on the ground and finds a sea of blood filled with corpses, as Alone takes his brush and dips it into the blood, and then creates a cross on the portrait, which causes Tenma's armor to shatter as he falls onto the ground bleeding from everywhere. But while he is falling, his hand grabs onto the bracelet on Alone's hand and destroys it. After killing Tenma, Alone's hair starts to turn black as he has finally let go of his past self. He bids farewell to Tenma, Sasha, and finally himself. With blood running from his eyes, Tenma walks back when Duko stops him. Even though Doko is too late to save Tenma, he decides to take revenge for him as he rushes at alone with full power. But he is interjected by Kagaho, one of the heavenly stars. Kagaho and Duko fight for a while, but Shion stops Duko from continuing as they are done with their mission, and sacrificing himself for nothing would only cause their power to weaken. Meanwhile, Alone suggests Kagaho return back as well, as they are also done with their task. With that being said, the ground starts to shake as an enormous black castle appears from the ground and stands firm overlooking the entire world. In the castle, the mysterious woman, who now reveals herself to be Pandora, announces to everyone that Hades has completed his awakening and that the Holy War has officially commenced. Alone waves his hand as a starry sky appears in the sky, in which a few spots have already turned black. Alone informs them that these black spots are the constellations that he wiped off that powered those saints. So now he wants to paint these all constellations black so the world can return back to its natural state. Thus, Pandora orders all the 108 stars to go and reduce the sanctuary into rubble and bring Athena's head to their master. Minos, one of the 3 judges of the Hades army, stands up and accepts the quest given to him and leaves. Later, Yato wakes up from under the rubble and finds Tenma lying on the ground with blood all over him. He tries to wake him up, but Tenma gives no response. In the sanctuary, Sasha dreams of Alone, who has Tenma's dead body in his hand as she chases after him. But the dream ends, and she wakes up all sweaty. Just then, Duko and Shion knock on her room and inform her of the situation. They explain that they lost the battle and 2 of the bronze saints are dead. While quivering, Sasha asks who those 2 saints were, to which Duko answers that they were Tenma and Yato. Sasha feels like she has lost something precious as her face is stricken with grief. But as the goddess Athena, she pulls herself up and orders Duko and Shion to inform the Pope that they might be attacked by the forces of Hades, so they must get ready to engage them. She also suggests they go and rest for a while, as the upcoming battle will be extremely tense. Her straightforward behavior raises her respect even more in the hearts of Duko and Shion, who swear to pledge their allegiance to the goddess Athena. Meanwhile, Yato pulls out Tenma's body and is crying about how grief-stricken Sasha would be if she found that he is dead. But a voice from behind tells him that Tenma isn't dead. Yato immediately looks behind and finds a mysterious woman and suspects her to be a specter. This causes him to immediately go into battle mode, but the woman stops him as their battle might attract the specters. She informs Yato that she isn't a specter, and that her master sent her here to rescue the survivors. Although Yato still doesn't trust her for the sake of saving Tenma's life, he decides to follow her. She asks him to stand close to her with Tenma in his arms, so she can use the teleportation spell. A strong light flashes by, and the next moment, Yato finds himself in a deserted rocky region with no signs of life nearby. The woman asks him to follow her as they cross a narrow bridge beneath which lays countless spiky rocks with dead bodies lying around them, skewered like chicken meat. After crossing the bridge, they arrive at an ancient Egyptian-looking building in which Yato finds a lot of saint clothes lying around in boxes. This makes him think that the woman might be killing the saints to steal their saint clothes. So once again, he attacks the woman, who is easily able to manhandle him, which makes Yato feel even more aggrieved. But he is stopped by the voice of an old man who tells him that these saint clothes are not stolen. And to prove that, he releases a small cosmos energy from his fingertips, which takes away Yato's unicorn saint cloth and puts it beside him. Yato is shocked and yells at the old man to give it back to him, but the old man tells him to calm down and watch as he revives the dead saint cloth back to life. He orders the woman, whom he calls Yuzuhira, to come close to him and pour her blood on the saint's cloth. Yuzuhira cuts open her wrist and drops some blood on the saint cloth, which makes her very weak as she falls down, but Yato manages to catch her as he puts her aside respectfully. Meanwhile, the old man puts a nail into the saint cloth, which causes it to shine brightly as it soon becomes full of vitality. The saint cloth equips itself onto Yato once again, who starts healing at a rapid pace. The man nods in satisfaction and tells Yato that to revive a saint's cloth, one must need the saint's blood. Although Yuzuhira isn't a proper saint yet, her powers allow her to rival normal, even stronger silver saints. Afterwards, the old man introduces this place to Jamir, which also serves Athena from the other side. The old is Haruke, who is the overseer of this place. Coming back to Tenma, the old man asks Yato to look at Tenma's wrist, where he notices a bracelet made of vines. The old man tells Yato that this bracelet was personally made by the goddess Athena, who is now Sasha. The bracelet contains her prayers and powers, so it's barely able to keep Tenma's body attached to his soul. But the bracelet will soon wither, so before that they must rescue Tenma's soul from the underworld. But to travel to the underworld, Yato needs to die as he pulls out a sword and unsheath it. He asks Yato if he is ready to sacrifice anything for the sake of Athena, to which Yato answers that if he can save Athena from being heartbroken, he won't hesitate to even sacrifice his own life. The man is impressed by him, so he doesn't kill him, and instead hands him the sword, as it will allow him to travel to the underworld. He pushes Yato into a portal that sends him into the underworld, where he is slammed directly onto the ground, prompting him to curse the old man for being so rough. But just then, he quickly blesses the old man as the pretty Yuzuhira also falls onto his lap from above the sky. He is surprised by this, so she tells him that the old man didn't fully trust his capabilities, so he also sent her here to help him. Yato is sad that he was taken so lightly, but he knows that what's important is saving Tenma. Yuzuhira explains to him the workings of the underworld and how all the dead people mindlessly walk towards the abyss, where once they fall, they can never return back. Tenma would suffer from the same fate if they didn't find him soon. With the time ticking very fast, they start searching for him everywhere around the underworld. Meanwhile, Tenma wakes up in the underworld tied to chains, but despite trying his best, he isn't able to break free. Just then, one of the heavenly stars, Fyodor, enters the room and informs Tenma that he is in the underworld due to the kindness of their master Hades, who spared his soul from eternal damnation. But this only causes Tenma to become even more enraged as he warns Fyodor to not call alone kind ever again. However, Fyodor doesn't pay any heed to his words and informs him that the forces of Hades will soon attack the sanctuary, and the goddess Athena will also find herself in the underworld soon. After saying this, he leaves as Tenma can only kick the air in anger and despair. Just then, Yato and Yuzuhira sneak in, but they are sneak attacked by a soldier of the underworld, so they have to subdue him in order to free Tenma. But their commotion attracts Fyodor, who realizes that some pests have infiltrated the underworld. Being one of the heavenly stars, Fyodor is extremely strong, and gives Yuzuhira and Yato tough competition. But Yato and Yuzuhira continue to get up on their feet, even after getting beaten down many times. This makes Tenma's blood boil. He is able to break free from his shackles due to the immense rage in his body. He uses that rage to tap into more of his cosmos' power, and delivers a heavy blow to Fyodor, which puts him into a coma. After defeating Fyodor, Yato immediately wants to bring Tenma back to the living world, but Yuzuhira stops him and tells him that there is something in the underworld that they must obtain, and that will be of great importance to the upcoming war. Back at the cathedral, Alone is painting the world with red when Pandora arrives at his grace, and informs him about the death of Fyodor and Tenma being captured in the underworld while still alive. Alone is surprised, which causes Pandora to feel fear, so she corrects herself by saying that she believes that he must have killed Tenma as his constellation dimmed on the starry sky. So there must be something else at play here. Alone instead asks her about the status of his troops marching their way to the sanctuary, to which Pandora answers that they are fine as they are, being led by one the strongest specters of the Hades army. According to her calculations, it's about the time they start coming into contact with the saints at the sanctuary. As she says this, the constellations in the starry sky start going down one by one, which puts a smile on Alone's face. Meanwhile, Yuzuhira guides Tenma and Yato towards their mission in the underworld. But Tenma and Yato keep on fighting each other over small things. Yato doesn't like that Tenma calls Athena by her mortal name, Sasha, while Tenma doesn't like that Yato is a busybody in his matters. Yuzuhira is having a headache listening to their constant yapping, so she begs them to stop as completing the mission comes first, and after that, they can yap as much as they want. In the living world, the Hades army arrives at the sanctuary as they deal with the few saints blocking their way. Minos is extremely fearsome due to his special ability, Marionette, which allows him to control anyone with his unseen threads. After killing the few bronze and silver saints, he arrives at the front of the sanctuary, but in his way stands a field of red demonic roses, which are filled with poisonous thorns. A few specters feel extremely arrogant and jump straight into the bed of the roses, but after taking a few steps, they start bleeding from all of their holes and are killed by the poisonous thorns. Just then, a golden saint arrives on the scene and walks in the fields of the roses without any fear. Minos recognizes him to be Pisces saint, Albafica. Albafica is one of the strongest of the Golden Saints and part of the 12 Zodiac, and for him to come here means only one thing: that Sanctuary is taking this holy war extremely seriously. A few of the specters watch Albafica walking through the field of roses unharmed become arrogant once again and jump to attack him, but before they can reach him, the scent of the demonic roses has already caused them to die inside. The mist of the demonic roses fills the entire arena, which even attracts the attention of Xion, who is accompanying Duco at the sanctuary. Xion informs Duco that there are 12 houses of zodiac constellations, which are guarded by the Golden Saints. The House of Pisces is the last and beyond, that is Athena's sanctuary. The area between them is filled with demonic roses, which keep all the intruders away. But the demonic roses are so poisonous that the inheritor of House Pisces is forced to adapt to its poison, to the level that even their blood is poisonous. Back at the battlefield, Albafica taunts Minos to step in, but instead of him, the other specter, Niobe beside him, jumps into the rose field and doesn't even flinch. Albafica is surprised, so Niobe tells him that poison has no effect on him as he attacks Albafica with no fear. But Albafica doesn't only have red roses, he also possesses black roses, which are extremely fast and deadly. But Niobe has a counterattack that withers all the roses around him. Albafica is even more shocked as a thick poison mist surrounds him and wilts all the roses and even himself. Niobe becomes arrogant and jumps into a close battle, but unfortunately, this level of poison isn't anything to Albafica, who regains back his strength and kills Niobe using thorns made of his own poisonous blood. After Niobe is dead, Minos finally steps into the battle as his wings create a strong gush of wind, which destroys the entire field of roses in an instant. Albafica wants to counterattack using his black roses, but Minos has already attached his invisible strings to his body, which renders all of his efforts in vain. While he is holding back Albafica, Minos orders his remaining underlings to go and slaughter the village close to the sanctuary, which Albafica holds very dear. While the specters head to the village, Minos decides to destroy the pretty face that Albafica is so proud of, but Albafica would rather sacrifice his arms than see his pretty face being destroyed. Minos is impressed that he would break his arms to break himself free from his strings and praises his courage. Minos once again throws his webs of strings which trap Albafica, but despite him destroying his legs and other bones, Albafica is still not willing to go down. Minos is surprised by his tenacity and asks him what keeps him going on, to which Albafica replies that as long as he stands, he will never let him reach the sanctuary. But Minos remarks that what's the point? His underlings are already on their way to the village and will slaughter each of the villagers that he so desperately tries to protect. But instead of falling into despair, Albafica smirks and tells him that they will never arrive at the village as he has already taken care of them. Just then, the specters who were supposed to slaughter the village find themselves being ambushed by a bunch of white roses who pierce into their hearts and suck all their blood out. Minos senses their death and praises Albafica for his brilliant moves. However, that doesn't matter as he will slaughter the village himself after killing him. But Albania is prepared to stop Minos here on this ground, as he unleashes a storm of crimson thorns that surrounds Minos, but unfortunately, the thorns aren't able to pierce the defenses of Minos' wings that cover his body. Albafica has no strength remaining, so Minos uses his marionette skill to destroy all of his bones, which makes Albafica into a bloody mush. After killing Albafica, Minos heads to the village where Agasha senses that something awful is about to happen. And just then, Minos arrives and destroys half of the village with a flick of his wing. Agasha's father is buried under the rubble, but he orders her to go and seek shelter in the sanctuary and not worry about him. So Agasha can only suppress her tears as she runs towards the sanctuary. She can't believe that Albafica is dead and is reminded of the time when he gave her his cape to protect her from the rain. But he was worried that she would be harmed, so he always made sure to distance himself from her. Agasha is running towards the sanctuary when she is spotted by Minos, who notices the red rose on her shirt and decides to kill her personally. But before he can kill her, Xion arrives and protects her. With Xion arriving instead of Albafica, Agasha is even more sure that he is dead and can't help but shed tears. Minos is getting annoyed, so he uses his marionette skill to make quick work of Xion, but he is stopped by Albafica, who appears out of nowhere with a red rose in his mouth. Agasha is extremely happy to see him, but Albafica doesn't have any emotion on his face. He walks in front of Minos, who is also extremely surprised to see him still alive, but if he can kill him once, he can kill him again. So he is about to use his marionette skill. But Albafica launches his crimson thrones at him, which consumes all the blood in his body. But the thorns were just the decoy, as the real weapon was the red rose, which held all the toxic blood inside of Albafica's body. The blood kills Minos without much problem, but the cost is Albafica's own life. Xion carries Albafica back to the sanctuary so he can be buried with the rest of the martyrs when Agasha asks him, when will the war stop? Xion can only tell her that the saints will keep on protecting the earth till the underworld is gone from this world. Just then, a teleportation gate opens near them, and a young boy appears from it. He informs them that he is from Jamir, and is here to give a piece of crucial information to the goddess Athena. Meanwhile, Pandora informs Alone that Albafica is dead, but Minos died as well. Fortunately, the specters of the underworld can never die as they are eternal, and can always be revived back to life through the help of their master, Hades. Alone poofs a glittering dust that revives the dead specters back to life, who are already ready to battle for their king. Back at the sanctuary, the young boy from Jamir tells the Pope that if they can wait for one, the people of Jamir will bring him a surprise that might turn the favors of the Holy War in their favor. In the underworld, Tenma and others have been constantly running for a long time, till they finally arrive at a cross-section, where they have to decide where to go. There, Yzuhira mentions that the specters do not die and can be infinitely revived, so Athena would never win. If they want to win, they need to end the source of their immortality, which is a tree located in the underworld. Soon they arrive at the open air of the underworld again, where they are faced off against a three-headed dog who threatens to kill them. But with the combined efforts from the trio, they are able to subdue the three-headed dog and continue with their journey, when suddenly, Yato feels a premonition that warns him. So he looks into the sky and finds that the king of the underworld, Hades, is here. Alone appears from the shadows as usual and greets Tenma, who is enraged after seeing him. But before he can say something, Yzuhira attacks Alone as she feels that this is a good time to take him out while he is still maturing. But she overestimates herself and ends up on the ground the next second. After dealing with the pesky insects, Alone comes close to Tenma and holds his face with his bare hands. He asks Tenma to join him in his cause and leave Athena so that way he won't need to suffer anymore. However, Tenma shakes off his hands and tells him that he will continue to fight for the sake of Sasha and will protect the peace that Alone once loved. Alone smiles and tells him that he will meet him again at the sanctuary, as a long-awaited reunion remains between the three of them. After Alone leaves, Tenma and others once again embark on their journey to the Golden Tree, but in their way stands the bloody waterfalls, which they need to climb in order to reach the Golden Tree. However, once Tenma starts to climb, he looks down and finds that Yato and Yzuhira are stopped in time. Tenma is weirded out, but just then he hears a voice as a man comes out from the waterfall who is none other than Saint Virgo Asmita. Asmita tells Tenma that he shouldn't be here, which makes Tenma feel offended as he asks him why would a golden saint be here in the underworld. But Asmita answers him that to him there is a thing as evil and good and that he seeks the truth of the world. But Tenma takes this to be his declaration of betrayal and throws a punch at him, but he isn't even able to pierce the barrier of Asmita, much less touch him. The rebound throws him back into the waterfall as Asmita tells him that he is just a hot-blooded youth with no resolve. So he explains to him about the Saint Pegasus, who has always been an incarnation that stood alongside Athena. He is also the only saint who managed to injure the king of the underworld. So he was given the name God Killer, which made him a sinner. Tenma doesn't understand what fate is and how it works. Right now he just wants to protect Sasha, just like he promised her when they were young. His resolve finally moves Asmita, who comes down and lifts his barrier to judge Tenma for his sins. He sends him into the 6 paths of reincarnation, where Tenma experiences a lot of things and learns about the nature of the world, but he still manages to survive and doesn't lose himself. So Asmita respects him and uses his ultimate attack, which is the treasure of the heavens. Inside the domain, Tenma loses all of his senses, but just when he is about to lose the sense of his mind, Asmita shows him a vision of him killing Sasha, which causes Tenma to come back to his senses only to lose them once again, as he uses all the force in his body to deliver one last punch towards Asmita. The punch shatters the domain, as reality starts to crumble. However, this was all just an illusion, as Tenma was never fighting against Asmita, but against the Golden Tree. His punch shatters the Golden Tree and causes it to drop all of its berries on the ground. Asmita tells Tenma to hand these berries to the old man at Jamir. After receiving the command, Tenma falls from the top but is caught by Yato, who just escaped the time stop. Tenma informs them to quickly head back to the real world and hand over the berries before passing out. Yato grabs Tenma and starts to run towards the entrance to the real world, but midway they are stopped by a specter. So Yato hands over Tenma to Yasuhira and has her take him back to the real world while he holds back the specter. Soon, Tenma wakes up in the real world and learns from Yasuhira that Yato is still in the underworld. But fortunately, Yato had Athena's sword, which saved his life at the lost moment and brought him back to real life. But their problems are still not over, as the Spectre's army is on its way to take away the berries of the underworld. Meanwhile, Asmita meets with Sasha and tells her that he now understands why she would place her trust in this earth. Despite being blind, he could feel much better than everyone else due to his unique senses. He always thought the world to be uninteresting, and so he doubted Athena when she chose to reincarnate as a human being. But when he met her, he realized that maybe human suffering isn't bad at all, and that maybe he can find solace in it. After saying that, he leaves for his last mission, as it's something he must accomplish. Afterward, he meets with Duko and tells him that he has a good disciple, and then heads towards Jamir to stop the specters. While Tenma and others are getting worried, Asmita has already taken care of the specters, but as they are immortal, they quickly revive back and start moving towards Jamir once again. So Asmita uses his blood to revive Pegasus's saint cloth and hands it over to Tenma, so he can stop the Spectre's army while he refines the berries into the ultimate killing weapon to end the immortality of the Spectre. But this uses the last bit of his cosmos's essence, turning him into a Buddha statue with the beads in his hands. But in his last moments, Amista, who was always blind, is able to open his eyes as he looks at the beautiful light of the world. He finally smiles as he tells Tenma that he is glad that he met him because it allowed him to fulfill the meaning of his life. But this resolves the issue of imbalance between the saints and the specters and changes the entire course of the Holy War. Meanwhile, at the sanctuary, the specters killed by Albafica white roses revive back, but they realize that Minos is also dead. They are wondering what to do when suddenly another golden saint arrives behind them, and this time it's Saint Taurus, Aldebaran. Aldebaran kicks their asses without even moving and heads out to deal with the rest. But just then, Duko arrives and tells him the details about the specters reviving, and Goddess Athena keeping sure that the barrier stops them from reviving again. But even the Goddess Athena has limits, so it caused the barrier to weaken, which allowed some of the specters to revive. After talking with Duko, Aldebaran leaves, but he senses an evil presence, so he heads out to deal with it. The evil presence naturally belongs to Kagaho, who is here to take revenge on Duko for trying to hurt Alone that other day. But Aldebaran stops him, which causes an earth-shattering battle between them to happen. No matter how much Kagaho struggles, he isn't able to put any damage onto Aldebaran, who is built like a massive bull. So Kagaho has no choice but to use cheap tactics, so he uses one of his moves to pin down Aldebaran, so he can use his fire blast to kill him once and for all. The fire blast burns a lot of Aldebaran's body and continues to burn it, which makes Kagaho laugh as the victory belonged to him. Duko arrives on the scene, but it's too late as Aldebaran is almost finished. Or at least that's what everyone thought, but Aldebaran is a massive beast who won't go down this easily. So he shakes off the remaining flame on his body, stands up in front of Kagaho, and tells him that he doesn't know why he is fighting, but he seems to confused. And that confusion is very dangerous, as it might cause him to not only hurt his enemies, but himself too. However, Kagaho isn't willing to accept it, as he only fights for the sake of Hades, but Aldebaran helps him realize that this isn't the case, and if it was, he would be much stronger than he is now. While they are fighting each other with their ideals, Aldebaran's students arrive, and seeing them cherish him makes Kagaho remember his childhood as well. This causes him to snort, as he tells Aldebaran that he won't lose again as they prepare for their round 2. Duko wants to stop him, but Aldebaran reminds him that it's his own battle, and that he must finish it by himself. Meanwhile, Kagaho has finished creating his ultimate triple fire blast that he throws at Aldebaran, who counters it by slamming the ground, and using that force to overset the force of Kagaho's attack. In the competition between Earth and Fire, the winner is always Earth, as Kagaho is a bloody mess at the end. He doesn't understand why would Aldebaran spare him, but the embarrassment from the loss causes him to run away in shame. Meanwhile, Aldebaran also falls down from exhaustion and is taken to the sanctuary to heal back his strength. In the meantime, he heads to the Pope to report to him about everything, where he meets Sisyphus, who who tells him that even though Goddess Athena is keeping the barrier secure, it won't be for long as she is exhausted. After informing the Pope, they both head outside where Sisyphus recalls the time when he brought back Sasha from Italy when she was just a little girl. It has been 5 years since then, and she has grown up to be a splendid lady and an admiring goddess to them. While he is reminiscing, he feels an extremely dark aura in the sky. And just then, the barrier of Athena shatters, causing Alone to descend into the sanctuary. With a wave of his hands, he destroys everything around him as people run away here and there to save themselves. Sasha tries to talk to Alone, but he informs her that he is Hades, not Alone. He also suggests she let go of his human self, as it will only bring trouble to her. Alone wants to enjoy his reunion with Sasha, but he is interrupted by the Golden Saints, so he decides to suppress them first, so they won't disturb him and Sasha. With a wave of his hands, all the saints are forced into the ground without an ounce of strength to stand up. The only person who is barely able to stand is Sisyphus, who pulls out his bow and shoots Alone, but the arrow returns straight back to him, causing his heart to be pierced. This was the bottom line of Sasha that Alone destroyed, so she becomes extremely furious and decides to show him that she isn't a random mortal. Alone is pleased that she is finally willing to show her divinity and pulls out his sword. But just then, a portal appears in the sky as Tenma jumps out from it with the refined beads in his hands. The two of them prepare to fight, but Tenma suddenly jumps in. Hades is surprised when Tenma shows him some rosary beads, claiming that they'll remove immortality from his specters. Tenma reassures Sasha that he'll handle the fight with Alone, remembering the sacrifice Asmita made for the beads. He is furious at Alone for turning into Hades, remembering that he had promised to meet him together with Sasha as friends. However, Alone doesn't seem to care as he calmly calls over a little dog. Tenma remembers that it's the same dog Alone saved a few years ago. Alone tells him that he really values the promise they made together, but that he has changed as a person. The dog in his hands suddenly growls and turns into a three-headed monster, the guard dog of the underworld, Cerberus. As Hades suddenly declares that he will bring darkness to the whole world, Cerberus attacks Sasha, who gets saved by a shocked Tenma. Tenma punches down Cerberus with the beads in his hand, but Alone laughs off his attack and stops his body mid-air. Alone laughs at Tenma, saying that he is just a mortal man facing a god. Seeing Alone prepare to destroy Tenma, Sasha cries out, and a gold light suddenly stops Alone in his tracks. Hades falls to his knees, shocked that his power is being sealed. The Pope walks up to him, confident with Athena's barrier by his side. Hades grins, remembering the Pope as a young soldier from the Holy War. However, Hades laughs at the weak power of the old talismans and sends the Pope flying into some rocks. The Pope is shocked that Hades is so powerful, but he combines the power of his Cosmo with Athena to launch a counterattack. It creates a massive portal that connects the temple with the ceiling tower containing Hades' 108 stars. The Pope tells Alone that Hades sealed his body in the underworld, and that Alone is just a weak vessel for his soul to return to the earth. The Pope decides to pull out Hades' soul from Alone's body to end the Holy War, but Hades doesn't seem worried at all. Suddenly, a woman's cold voice shocks everyone. A carriage appears out of the sky and the woman appears from it. She claims that Hades' soul still remembers his memories from his time alone, so she will handle his friends herself. The woman introduces herself as Pandora, Hades' older sister and cruel bodyguard. Pandora is furious at Athena for reincarnating as Hades' sister, thinking that it's an act that disrespects the status of the gods. She accuses Sasha of trying to trick Hades into becoming a softie, but Sasha only wants to live together with her brother and Tenma. This doesn't convince Pandora, and she lashes out at Athena, only to get stopped by Tenma. Hades then calls her back, saying he wants to go back to his castle. He says that he doesn't want to stay in the sanctuary any longer, but Tenma futilely tries to stop Hades. Suddenly, Hades reveals a strange painting covering the sky. He announces that this is the legendary lost canvas, and when the entire painting covers the sky, all life on Earth will stop living. This shocks Tenma and the rest. But Hades reminds Tenma of the time he used a painting against him as well. Tenma gets angry, remembering that Alone used to have a real love for painting, and he charges Hades to stop him. Suddenly, Pandora calls a beast called Behemoth to stop Tenma, but Aldebaran stops Behemoth in his tracks. With his help, Tenma shoots to the sky and flies up to Hades' carriage to stop him. The carriage driver jumps with surprise, but Tenma reaches inside, desperate to make Hades recognize him. However, Hades swats him away like a fly, leaving him alone inside with Pandora. Pandora asks Hades why he went to the sanctuary, and Hades quietly tells her that he just shot a saint as he was supposed to. Pandora knows that he is feeling sad, but he has a more important question for her: why she followed him around. Pandora gets nervous and claims she is just watching for his safety, but Hades knows that he is being monitored like a prisoner in jail. Meanwhile, somewhere in the underworld, Hades' specters all discuss the emotions their master is feeling. They know that Hades was acting way too immaturely for a god, and think that he is not currently suitable for being their leader. The specters wonder if Hades can forget all his memories with Sasha, and if Pandora can handle their god's impure soul. A few days later, Tenma sits thinking about the lost canvas from Hades. Even though Hades left, everyone was worried about the threat of his attack. Suddenly, Duco smacks him back to reality, telling him to get up and work. On his way back, Duco feels glad that Tenma came back from the dead. However, Tenma doesn't seem too happy, remembering that Sisyphus lost his life against Hades. Duco explains that the attacks from Hades put the soul to sleep, so Sisyphus might never wake up again. Tenma wonders how Alone could become so cruel, taking out a saint and preparing to end his own sister, Sasha. Even though Duco hates Hades, he tells Tenma to keep his emotions for his old friendships alive. He remembers that Sisyphus believed in Tenma for becoming the protector of the future, so he left the burden of defeating Hades in his hands. Shifting to Hades' castle, Pandora feels strange about Hades' behavior. She knows that her lord is performing his duty well, but she still thinks that there is something weird about his actions. Her thoughts are interrupted when two of Hades' stars, Hypnos and Thanatos, appear from a portal. They scold Pandora for letting Hades escape on his own and creating a scene at the sanctuary. The gods punish Pandora, reminding her that if she can't find a way to control Hades, they will take away all control from Hades and lock him inside a room. This angers Pandora even more, who walks away, thinking that Alone's memories still exist inside Hades because of the pesky Athena. She walks into a strange room where she orders some assassins to take out the Pegasus Saint, Tenma. Two assassins called Bat Wimber and Dullahan Cube appear to take her order, and Pandora feels confident that these two can handle Tenma and orders them to bring her his head. Back in the sanctuary, Aldebaran places some wine near Virgo's tomb, paying his respects to him. He feels regretful that he couldn't fight alongside Virgo, and swears to use the beads he created to end all of Hades' specters. After paying his respects, Aldebaran goes outside and sees Tenma training with a student. He notices some bats in the sky before shrugging them off. Then, Aldebaran challenges Tenma to a sparring fight, easily knocking him out. He tells the young saint that he has a long way to go before he can challenge the lord of the underworld, Hades. But Tenma doesn't give up and keeps on training. Soon, everyone gets tired from the training and falls asleep. Bat Wimber appears from the darkness, having used his bats to put everyone to sleep with sound. He prepares to take out Tenma, but Aldebaran suddenly calls out to him. Wimber is shocked that Aldebaran isn't asleep, but finds out that Aldebaran's eardrums burst, so he didn't get affected by the sound spell. The Gold Saint unleashes a powerful attack that knocks away the assassins, but Wimber attacks Aldebaran from a blind spot and punches through his armor. The Gold Saint stays strong as the two assassins begin ferociously striking him, his injuries from the fight against Kagaho coming back. Aldebaran keeps taking one punch after the other, taking the assassin's wrath full force. However, even after all those attacks, he keeps on standing, remembering his mission to protect the young saints. Determined to protect the young ones, Aldebaran suddenly grips the assassin and lifts him up, and a great energy starts flowing out from his body as he smashes the assassin dead into the ground. The other assassin is shocked by his power but uses his ultimate attack, the dead lady who sings her enemies to death. Aldebaran knows that she can defeat him even though he can't hear her, and he falls down on his knees in weakness. The assassin is relieved to have finally put down the giant, but he still has more power to unleash. Remembering his commitment to the children, Aldebaran prepares to unleash his final attack in front of the terrified assassin. All the assassin can do is scream, as with one final burst of energy, Aldebaran ends his existence. From the remains of the explosion, a wimpy little assassin called Frog jumps out. He feels good that he was able to sneak in and take the spoils of war from the other two assassins, but Kagaho suddenly appears and grabs him. He demands to know what happened to his lord Hades and who sent the assassins, and learns that it was Pandora's order. Frog tells Kagaho that Pandora now controls all the specters, and he should listen to her if he wants to get rewarded. However, Kagaho only grows angry and crushes the frog, declaring that he will only take orders from his master Hades. After a while, Tenma wakes up from his sleep. He is shocked to see Aldebaran's corpse and gets enraged at Kagaho. Kagaho reveals that he wasn't the one who defeated Aldebaran, and informs Tenma that even stronger assassins will later come to hunt him. Tenma asks if Hades ordered the assassins to attack him, and learns that Pandora is actually the one in control now. Tenma wonders what happened to Hades, but Kagaho tells him to find out for himself before leaving him alone. The other students also wake up and come up to Tenma, only to see their teacher Aldebaran gone from this world. After losing Sisyphos just a few days ago, Tenma has lost yet another friend who sacrificed himself. News of the Taurus Saint Aldebaran's death spreads around town. People start talking about how the great saint died in order to protect a measly bronze saint. Tenma hears all of this and leaves the sanctuary, feeling great guilt in his heart. Shione and Duko find out about this and desperately try to search for Tenma, knowing how horrible he is feeling right now. The two of them discuss that the people could think that Tenma is a traitor who betrayed them during a crisis, which would create even more problems for the young saint. Duko thanks Shione for helping him out, but Shion feels no problem at all in helping him search for his younger brother. Somewhere else in a graveyard, Teneo mourns Aldebaran's death. Celintha sneaks up on him, which makes him blush in embarrassment for showing his weakness. She teases Teneo before sitting down and sighing. Calintha thinks that she'll quit being a saint, thinking that she doesn't have the courage to handle any more losses. However, she will not stop helping out on the battlefield, remembering Aldebaran's advice to offer her strength. Celintha reminds Teneo that now that Aldebaran is gone, he needs to become worthy of being his successor and taking his name. This shocks Teneo, but he is determined not to disappoint Taurus. Meanwhile, a disappointed Tenma gets stopped by a gold saint, Cancer Manigold. Manigold points out that Tenma shouldn't leave the sanctuary during a time of war, but Tenma feels like he's just a burden on everyone else. Tenma feels responsible for causing Aldebaran's death, which surprises Manigold. Tenma recalls Kagaho's words that Pandora will continue sending more and more assassins to hunt him, which would result in more losses. Thus, he wants to leave the sanctuary and fight the war on his own, so no one else can get hurt because of him. However, this just makes Manigold laugh at Tenma, thinking that he has a very high opinion of himself. He tells him that it's completely normal for people to die during wars, and that Aldebaran lost his life because he was too weak to protect himself. This angers Tenma, but Manigold easily carries him in his hands. He thinks that Tenma is lucky that he's friends with Hades, so he puts him in jail instead of just killing him. Tenma wonders why the Gold Saints still think he is useful for something. He feels sad that he's in such a pathetic state, but wonders what Alone is doing if Pandora is the one controlling everything behind the scenes. Shifting to Pandora's place, she feels the disappearance of her two assassins and Taurus. Pandora feels worried that Hades might find out about her secret operations. She remains determined to end Pegasus to prove her love and devotion to her lord. But suddenly, one of the 108 demons reminds her of her failure. As Hades calls out to Pandora, the demon reminds her that he'll get even angrier at her and lose his attachment to her. He points out that if she loses her ability to influence Hades, they will lock him up and control all his actions. Pandora doesn't want to lock up her lover, but the demon explains that if she lets Hades act on his own, he will eventually remember his memories as Alone and go back to his friends. Then he puts a flower on her hair, saying that he'll even help her make Hades love him if she just obeys his orders. Pandora goes out and faces Hades, who is incredibly angry at her for acting behind his back. She asks Hades why he keeps on focusing on his friends, but Hades tells her that he is committed to completing the painting of the lost canvas. Suddenly, Pandora notices a painting in the center of the canvas, a memory of Alone and his two friends. She grows mad that Alone's memories still taint her lord's pure soul, so she finally releases her power and locks him up. Both friends, Tenma and Alone, are now in prison, but Tenma gets help from his friend, Yato. Yato leads Tenma through an underground tunnel, where they meet a masked silver saint. Tenma prepares to fight this enemy, but she takes her mask off, revealing herself as Yuzuhira. Yato feels upset that Yuzuhira got promoted directly to silver after passing the test, and the three of them begin moving out. Suddenly, Tenma tells his two friends that he has decided to visit Hades' castle. Meanwhile, the Pope explains to Athena that the Pegasus Saint has been locked up to protect him from the enemy. Sasha thinks that this is a reasonable choice, But suddenly, the master of Jameer shows up. He warns her from putting Tenma in a cage. Sasha wonders why he wants her to send him to his death, but the master tells her that Tenma needs to grow stronger since he is their only hope of reaching deep into Hades' soul. The master also announces that his students are helping Tenma escape from his prison, which angers the Pope. The master remains steady, saying that he will take complete responsibility for Tenma's fate. The Pope calms down, and both of the masters agree that they have to take care to protect themselves from any spies in the shadows as well. Meanwhile, in the Underworld castle, Pandora sits playing a harp with the two demons. They tell her about the Pegasus Saint's journey, knowing that Tenma still wants to reconnect with Alone. However, they feel confident that Tenma's journey will soon end since Pandora has sealed Hades into a safe place. The demons prepare to take out Tenma from outside the castle as he carries on moving with his friends. Tenma feels a bit sad that he has to fight Hades without Athena's help, but suddenly in the distance, he sees Sasha smiling at him. Knowing that she is still his old friend at heart instead of the goddess Athena, Tenma charges ahead with renewed determination. Will Tenma be able to peer into Alone's soul to wake him up? Or Hades will completely take over Alone's body, giving him no chance to save his best friend? To know the rest of the story, like this video and comment part 2. If you've gotten to this point of the video, comment your favorite saint down below from this series. For me, it's Saint Virgo. His character arc had me in tears. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. See you guys next time.